Imagine this. An ICE agent walks into your workplace with a notice of inspection demanding to see your I-9s. Would you panic or would you hand them over with a smile? Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone to our latest edition of OutRageous HR. I'm Alanna, Senior HR Consultant with OutSolve, and here with me today is my colleague Desiree, our in-house I-9 guru. Hey Desiree.
Hey there. Well, it's a good question. What do you do if ICE walks into your office with a notice of inspection with intent to review your I-9s? And I would say definitely start with a smile. It's always good to be cordial, but take the 3 days that you get in order to compile those documents, look through them, have some due diligence to see what you're handing over. Be sure to review what is being asked for, because there'll be a scope defined in the notice of inspection. So certainly take those 3 days that you get. Don't just gather them quickly and submit them. Take that very short amount of time and use every second to be prepared.
That's right. So let's jump right in. Can you give us a quick rundown of what the Form I-9 is and why there's a renewed focus in making sure that they're filled out properly?
Yeah, Form I-9 is a document used by U.S. employers to verify the identity and employment eligibility of employees in the United States. It's a very simple document, one page, but ironically, there's a 130-page guidance document in order to assist people with, how the nuances exist within the document. So you would think it would be very simple, but there's actually a lot of opportunity for error. And that's what ICE is looking for in large part is, are you conducting the I-9 Section 1 and Section 2 correctly? Are they being done in a timely fashion? There's many ways to go wrong. And one thing to consider for HR is how many people do you have assisting in the completion of your I-9? So that creates a lot of opportunity for variation in the process and the practices, which can be problematic. And another thing to consider is who's completing the Form I-9 Section 2, which is done by the employer. Who's doing that for your organization? Some people have hiring managers doing it. Some people have HR coordinators. There's a lot of variation in practice when there's a lot of hands in the pot.
So I-9s have been around since 1986, but what is new recently that we should know about?
Yeah, the form itself hasn't changed significantly over the years. There have been minor changes for sure, but I think the focus now is on the current administration. They have got obviously a pretty heavy focus on immigration over the first 100 or so days that Trump has been in office. That's definitely been a key focus for them is immigration, which the I-9 absolutely looks at folks that their employees' immigration statuses and requires that employers are not hiring and employing folks who are ineligible to work in the United States. Another thing to add to that is that the budget, if you just think of how the current administration's issuing budgets for the different departments. And the Department of Homeland Security's budget is in the billions, and they have a lot of employees, and they're not cutting employees as many other departments are. So you can tell that, in addition to the obvious focus of the administration, they're putting the dollars there as well to help with enforcement.
So what are some common errors that employers make when they're filling out the I-9?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely often confusion on who completes Section 1 and who completes Section 2. The employee is supposed to complete Section 1. The employer is supposed to complete Section 2. If any corrections are needed to Section 1, the employee should change them, not the employer. And traditionally, I-9s are done in person. So the employee would come in and meet with the employer to have an in-person appointment to verify their documents and verify their identity matches their documents. And so employers that have remote workforce, that's very difficult to do. So starting in 2023, the USCIS now allows employers to do that remotely, as long as you're an E-Verify employer. There's also issues with documents presented during the verification appointment. There's a lot of different documents that can be presented, and it can be hard to keep up with the variation. And sometimes employers include too many documents in that process or tell the employee what to provide, and they're not supposed to do that as well. So that's a very common mistake that people make. Also, re-verifications. Employers often miss that they have employees that must be re-verified. So that's a very important place to spend some time. And then also Like I said, in terms of centralization, where are the I-9s? Are they stored in different places for different people? Does the hiring manager have it in the filing cabinet? So that can be the most difficult part, is just finding the documents. And again, diligently making sure that there aren't any errors. And again, having multiple verifiers doing that Section 2 creates a lot of room for those variations. And I think that is something for employers to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. So what can be done before ICE would walk in the door and request to see the I-9s to make sure that companies are feeling comfortable with their processes?
Yeah, I would say, as easy as it sounds, conducting an internal audit on your own to kind of simulate what would that situation be. Do you have any particular work sites that are near some of the areas in which the administration is kind of focusing? Chicago, Denver. There's a lot of focus that can be sort of drilled down on based on the administration's just focus on immigration in general. So you could do kind of a mock audit to say, okay, do we have all the I-9s for the people in this location? Do we have anybody whose authorization hasn't been updated and should be? Have we over-documented? That's something I haven't talked about, is that you can't ask the employee to provide particular documents. The employee decides what's provided in that conversation as the I-9 is completed. So if you somehow had a passport, a driver's license, and a social security card, that would be considered over-documentation. So I would say conduct that internal audit to see how would it look if ICE was doing the audit. Like, do it without them so that you know what you can resolve. Because if you do get audited, they take that into consideration as good faith, that you're trying to get it right.
That is great advice. I'll also add that working with a compliance partner can also be super helpful. Having an expert kind of holding your hand or allowing you to come up with a process for conducting that internal audit would probably be very valuable. Are there any last pieces of advice that you have for us today? I
would say standardize your process and absolutely make sure anyone completing I-9s for your company is trained to do so. There's things that have changed. The temporary protected statuses are changing. There's a lot that you have to keep up with. So I would say standardize your process, centralize your process, and make sure that people who are completing Section 2 for I-9s are trained regularly.
Thanks so much, Desiree, for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining today on this edition of OutRageous HR. Feel free to check out our website at outsolve.com for additional I-9 tools.